to start with the first lecture, the living world. We know that our earth is made up of both biotic and abiotic components. What are the abiotic components? The abiotic components are the air, the soil, the topography, the climatic conditions. All these are abiotic components, and the biotic components include plants, animals, and the microorganisms. Now we know that abiotic components are non-living and the biotic components are living. So how do you differentiate between the two? You have learned the differentiation between living and non-living things in your lower classes, and I know that all of you know the difference between living and non-living organisms or the components. We're going to learn some basic principles of life, of living organisms. Okay, what are the principles that define a living organism or that defines life? The first one they have spoken about is metabolism. Now what is metabolism? Metabolism is the sum total of all the chemical reactions that take place in the cell. Your cell is a reservoir of many biochemical reactions, as a result of which the cell survives. So the totality of all the reactions that take place in the cell is called as metabolism. Metabolism is made up of two types, anabolism and catabolism. We're going to see what anabolism is and what catabolism is. Okay. Now, anabolism are those reactions where a complex substance is made or is synthesized from simple substances. So when you add up many simple substances, there's a synthesis of a complex substance. Such reactions which take place in the cell that results in the production of a complex substance are called as anabolic reactions. And the reactions wherein a complex substance is broken down into simple ones, just the opposite. When a complex substance is broken into simple ones, such reactions are said to be catabolic in nature, or they are called as catabolic reactions. So metabolism is made up of both anabolism and catabolism. One more thing you need to remember is, whenever there is an anabolic reaction taking place, energy is being utilized. For the production of a complex substance, energy is being utilized. Whereas during a catabolic reaction, that is when a complex substance is broken down into simple ones, into simple substances, here energy is being released. Okay, in the cell, when energy is released, this release of energy takes place in the mitochondria. You have learned in your 10th standard. Mitochondria are called as the powerhouse of the cell. So here in mitochondria, glucose, a complex substance, is broken down into simple substances like water and CO2, and there is release of energy. This energy is stored in the mitochondria and then utilized by the cell whenever required. Hence, mitochondria are called as the powerhouse of the cell. The second, so this is the first basic principle of living organism. All living organisms will show metabolic activities. No non-living thing or non-living component will exhibit metabolism. Okay, so metabolism defines life. The second principle that defines life is growth. We know that growth is defined as the increase in the number of cells, resulting in the development, the physical, the mental, physical and the mental development of an individual. Growth in case of living organisms takes place from within. It is intrinsic. You can't see it on the outside, but you know that you are growing. When you see the photographs, you know, when you were a very young child, maybe 1 year old or 2 year old, and now that you have grown to be an adolescent, you can see the changes that has taken place. You have grown in height, maybe you have grown in width, fine. So there is growth taking place, but you can't see that. Even now you are growing, but you can't see it, because in living organism growth takes place from within. Okay, so growth is also a principle which defines life. And growth in living organism, they have said in the textbook, is well orchestrated process. Now what do you mean by that? Now children, when you learn about reproduction, okay, now in case of higher organisms, we exhibit sexual mode of reproduction. Now during sexual reproduction, we know that there is fusion between the male gamete and a female gamete, resulting in the formation of zygote. Zygote is a single cell organ. It is a single cell that is produced as a result of the fusion of male and female gamete. This single cell then undergoes a number of mitotic division, resulting in increase in the number of cells. So zygote eventually forms an embryo, a ball of cell. This embryo then gets implanted in the uterus of the mother, from where definite plant growth takes place. Differentiation of the cells of the embryo takes place. Now what is differentiation? The cells of the embryo eventually will form tissues. The tissues then form organs. Organs form organ system, and finally the individual. So this is what is called as well orchestrated growth. Okay, otherwise if this was not taking place, if differentiation was not taking place, we all would have been a ball of cell. We wouldn't be having these organs. Okay, so it is because of the differentiation of cells. So growth is not simply increase in the number of cells. Growth also should lead to what is called as differentiation. So you have the cells forming tissues, tissues forming organs, organ system, and finally the organism. So that is the second basic principle that defines life. Then they are speaking about growth and development are not the processes which have unlimited lifespan. Okay, after a period of time, the molecules or the organs or the organ system will lose their effective working, and what will happen? They'll become old. This process is called as aging. Eventually the cell will then die, the organs will fail, and the organism will come to an end. So the process of aging, the phenomena of death, is only exhibited or shown by living organisms. Non-living components do not show this property. The next is reproduction. You know what reproduction is? Reproduction is the parent maturing and giving rise to young ones of its own kind. The significance of reproduction you have learned in your 10th standard. It is for the continuity of species. If not for reproduction, there would have been extinction of species. Fine. So for the continuity of race, for the continuity of species, reproduction is important. And this process, reproduction, is shown by living organisms. Non-living organisms do not show this property or this phenomenon or this physiological process. They have said in your text that mules, sterile worker bees, do not reproduce, yet they are living. Can we call reproduction as inclusive characteristic of life? Okay, so now we are coming to these animals. Okay, mules. Mules are organisms or animals which are formed by breeding donkey and a horse. The resulting product, that is mule, is sterile, meaning that it cannot be produced to produce another mule. So in order to get a mule, you have to crossbreed a donkey and a horse, and many a time it is man engineered. It is for our convenience. because these animals, they are able to carry a lot of burden. They're very strong like the horse, and they are able to do a lot of work like a donkey. So it's used for transportation, etc. in hilly regions. Fine. So mules, they are living organisms, but they are not able to reproduce. So can you say that reproduction is a defining property of life? No, then in this case, okay, it doesn't mean that all living organisms have to reproduce. Even if they don't reproduce, they are living organisms, since they exhibit all the other properties of a living organism. They have also spoken about sterile worker bees. In a beehive, there are 3 different types of bees. We have the queen, we have the drone, which are males, and the female worker bees. The female worker bees, they are sterile, that is, they cannot reproduce. It is only the queen and the male drones which take part in copulation. They mate and produce young bees. So female workers, they are sterile, but you can't say that since they are sterile, they are not living organisms. They are of course living organisms, even if they do not show the property of or the phenomenon of reproduction. Then I already spoke to you about death, which is exhibited only by living organisms. So it is when the body, the cells lose their capacity to perform biochemical reactions or metabolism, it eventually leads to death, and that is only shown by living organisms. Then a very important characteristic feature only shown by living organism is responsiveness to stimulus. Children, we know that we are aware of the surroundings. You know where you are sitting. You can interpret, you can understand what I am saying in case only if you are paying attention to. Okay, you are aware of the surrounding. You know what's going around you. You can feel the heat. Okay, all those things your body responds to. Your body can interpret it. Okay, any stimulus given to you, you are able to respond to it. Okay, this is shown only by living organisms. A non-living organisms, you can hammer it as much as you want, it's not going to respond. But if you are hammered, you will want to hammer that person back. Okay, you respond to that particular stimuli. So this responsiveness to stimulus or consciousness of the organism is shown only by living organisms. It is not shown by non-living components. So these are all the various basic principles of life which defines a living organisms or which can differentiate a living organism from a non-living organism. Now children, they have spoken about diversity. Now you know what diversity is. If you take the earth as the earth is an ecosystem, okay, where you have many species of plants, many species of animals, all living in harmony. They are all interrelated to each other. They are interdependent on each other. We know that in an ecosystem, you've learned about the food pyramid, the energy pyramid. We have the producers, the plants at the lowermost level. They produce food not only for themselves but also for the other organisms in the ecosystem. We have herbivorous animals directly depending on the producers for their food, and we have the carnivorous animals depending on the herbivorous animals for their food. In case any one of the the members of this particular food chain happen to decrease, then it is going to, the entire ecosystem will collapse. If the number of plants decreases, obviously the herbivorous animals will die of starvation, and their numbers will become less. If their number becomes less, obviously carnivorous animals are going to starve, and it will lead to decrease in their number. So there will be a total disharmony in the ecosystem. Fine. So it's very important that this diversity is preserved. There is conservation of these species of plants so that it doesn't disturb the ecosystem, the working of the ecosystem. Now, to study or to understand the interactions between the organisms, a systematic study of these organisms are important. A systematic study about the diversity of living organism is also important, because this data also, as mentioned in your book, is important for various industries. It is helpful in agriculture, etc. And to study diversity, or to study about the plants and animals, to group the plants and animals, there are a number of aids that is essential, and these aids are called as taxonomical aids. By using this taxonomical aids, study of these organisms or study of biodiversity on the earth becomes very easy. And these taxonomical aids include herbaria, botanical gardens, museum, zoological parks, biodiversity park, etc., which we will see in the next lecture.